And welcome to another Thursday Night Live with the Soaring Prophets boys. Obviously, Patrick, guy down there doing his little dance is James. And tonight we are thrilled to be joined with Dr. Brandi Brotherton, all the way from Houston, Texas. She's doing some amazing stuff down there, changing the culture around our inner high school education system and really doing a great advocacy piece around that. And we're privileged to have been brought to her from Kyle Green. Kyle, shout out to you, buddy. I'm sure you're out there watching us, or you'll see us in some of the shorts as we put this out here. But Kyle, same kind of guy, out there really advocating for kids that otherwise might not have a voice. And Brandi, we are thrilled to have you here. Thank you for joining us. One of the questions that I want to start off with tonight is that, and we talked kind of briefly about this in the green room before you came on, was your story. Like you come from sort of this, and I don't want to paraphrase it this way per se, but rags to riches, right? Where you came from very humble beginnings, and now you are this advocate, but also this light on a hill for your students, where they can look at it and go, hey, it's not always easy. There's going to be struggle. There's going to be some strife. But if you hustle and you keep working and moving forward, the options and opportunities are endless. And again, Brandi, I want to thank you so much. Dr. B. We're going to go with Dr. B. I think that's what all the kids are calling you these days. That's the cool thing. So Dr. B, tell us a little bit about you, what you're doing in your school, and why it's so important to be touching these children in the way that you are.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patrick and James. I'm so happy to be here with y'all. What an amazing time to be alive in education. So, thank you again. Whenever I reflect back on my story, right, when you look at a person, I think so often it's easy to say, man, this chick has it made. She's got it all together. She walks right. She talks right. She dresses right. And really, when you reflect back, it didn't start like that, right? Whenever I think about where I come from, I'm from a tiny, small town in the Texas Panhandle up north of Amarillo, Texas. I graduated with 32 students in my class, 1,000 people in the town, and I landed somehow here in this mega city of Houston. But whenever I think about growing up, I lived in a trailer house. I didn't have a lot of anything except for what I needed most, which is love. And amazing. My parents, they didn't go to college. My grandparents, my grandfather, he went to the 6th grade. My grandma went to the 3rd grade. My dad went to kindergarten and knew no English at all, zero. He was labeled as having significant learning disabilities and some other major mental issues because, that was back in a time before ESL or emergent bilingual was even a thing.
Sure.
And so we're thrust into this environment and really just asked to assimilate immediately. And so growing up, there was really never this push to just be super uber successful. We're going to do all the things. We're going to go to school. We're going to do well. But truly excelling outside of that environment really wasn't even anything that we even knew how to imagine, right? And so whenever I went into high school, I became a basketball star. I somehow, I don't know how, but ended up getting into some camps and being an all-state basketball player in high school.
Amazing.
Right. So, yes. So my senior year, I tear my ACL and my world comes crumbling down, right? Because I'm like, okay, I'm going to be the first in my family to go to school, and I'm going to go to school for free. So here we are. I can do this. Maybe I can do this. And so then whenever I tear my ACL, I find out that, okay, I'm going to have to go to school still because this is a dream, but how am I going to do this? And so I end up going to college. Everything's fine. I graduate from college in 3 years. And I'm like, okay, maybe I really am going to break this cycle of just graduating high school, getting a normal job, and moving back home, right? Because that's what we do. We are expected to graduate high school and then we move back home and we work. And it's okay because that's a good living. Right. And I started finding myself just wanting more and more. And as you start to break cycles, you start to believe in yourself just a little bit more. And so I moved to Houston and actually enrolled in law school.
Wow.
So while in law school, I was about almost a year in, and I decided I don't want to do this. This is not fulfilling to me, especially once they said, okay, you need to go into contract law or oil and gas law to really make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hold up. Like,
not making a difference.
I wanted to be the chick that's like in the suit walking down the prison aisle, like defending these people. But that's not reality if you really want to make money.
Yeah, it doesn't pay the bills, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
those criminals in prison probably don't have a lot of money right beside them to pay it.
Right. And so in that moment, my dreams were crushed, right? I'm like, oh, I am not about to spend the rest of my life in these books with oil and gas. That's just not me. Yeah. And so, granted, I want you to remember that I have now began to break the cycle of an uneducated family. And so I had my college degree, but I made the hardest phone call I've ever made, leaving out of one of the law buildings one afternoon back home to my parents to tell them that I was quitting law school, right? Because I was fulfilling all of their dreams.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was fulfilling everyone around me's dream except for mine.
That's a lot of people to carry on your shoulders.
And I've never really understood that I was carrying that. I was just doing it because when people have this expectation of you and you become this person of success, you can easily lose yourself in other people's dreams for you, especially with this first generation weight of the world on your shoulders success.
Right.
And so I didn't want to let my parents down. And it was bigger than that. I didn't want to let my family down in general. And I didn't want to let my hometown down. And so I called my mom and my dad and I told them I'm quitting law school. And that was a hard time. But during that time, I really just wanted to coach basketball. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a coach. And so I went back and got my alternative certification. And I went into a job interview at Elsick High School, a school with 4,200 kids in the inner city of Houston, Texas. And whenever I walked in, I'm like, wow, like this place is amazing. But it was summer.
Right.
And it was empty. And it was clean. And it was beautiful. And it was the daytime. And the area looked safe and beautiful and wonderful. And they offered me a job before I walked out of the doors. And I accepted, and then August came. And I walked into that school, and I called my mom at lunch, and I said, if I can make it until Christmas, I'm coming home.
Oil and gas. I'm going back to oil and gas.
You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a great lawyer. We're going to make...
These kids were bigger than me. They looked older than me. I was 22 years old at the time because remember, I graduated college in 3 years.
Yeah.
I was teaching seniors, government. So a couple of them were older than me. Yeah. And I was terrified. I'm like, I cannot do this. If I can make it till Christmas, I can go home. And in that moment, I really had to reflect on whether or not this was for me and really do some soul searching. But as the time went on and we made it to Christmas, you start to truly see that I'm really going to make a difference in these kids who were actually like my age in their lives. And then I had this sports aspect of it where I was really able to connect with people in general and really see that, okay, we can make a change in these people's lives. And so we make it, I'm telling you, the very first time that we had a fire drill in this big, huge school that's 4 times the size of my hometown, I left my class in the room, ran out of the building, and had no clue where my class was, right? I'm like, I'm sorry, I was scared. I didn't know what was happening, and I left. I did it, but you learn along the way, and you learn that you have to rely so deeply on the people around you.
That's right.
To help
the mentors that you find within the school.
In that moment, I was introduced to my mentor, who actually is the individual that hired me. She, Miss Rodriguez, she looked like me, and that was something that it's rare, whenever I hadn't seen a woman that was a principal that was Hispanic in that role. And so I'm like, okay, I can do this. If she can do this, I can do this. And she is the one that truly encouraged me to take the next steps into administration, because that was never really something that I desired. And so I went back to school and got my master's. And shortly after I got my master's degree, Miss Rodriguez encouraged me to get my doctorate. And I'm like, look, lady, I just finished school. I'm not trying to go back to school. And I didn't at first. And she continued to encourage me. So I was the advanced academic coordinator at my school. And then I became an assistant principal at the same school. And then I became the associate principal at the same school. And then I moved over into the current role that I'm in as principal of Alief Early College High School. And at that point, she continued to encourage me to get my doctorate. And now I am a part of the less than 0.5% of Hispanic women in the world that have their doctorate. And so just really, really relying on someone else to believe in me has allowed me to now pour that same belief into kids that look just like me and that come from situations just like what I came from, and sometimes even much worse situations than what I came from. And so I feel like now, whenever I could tell y'all and show you so many messages from my kids, specifically my Hispanic females, that they'll message me and say on Instagram, Dr. B, to my ultimate role model, right? And that's the goal. Like, I want to be that for them, so that when they look at me, they see themselves in positions of success. And so here we are, all these years later, 21 years later, in this same school district, being able to take what I thought could be something good in becoming a teacher and truly being able to impact lives of kids in numbers that I could have never dreamt. And doing that through loving them unconditionally, through showing them what success looks like, and through helping them to understand that success is not free. People look at you and they think that they know, but really they have no idea the work behind what got you to where you are today. And so I feel like, we're really trying to put that narrative in our students' minds, that success is within your grasp, but it's not going to be easy. We talk to the parents about what it takes to truly be successful. And in this building, every day, and I tell the parents, I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. But what I can assure you is that when your kids walk in here every day in these four walls, they're going to be loved unconditionally. And we're going to believe in them like no one's ever believed in them in their entire lives, and create the environment that fosters success. Right. And so that's really the goal every single day when our kids walk into this building.
Well, I'm sold. Where do I sign up to get a job? You know what, Dr. B, I knew when Kyle told us a little bit about you. I think he talked to us about 45 minutes all about you after his interview, that this would be a great interview. I can't humbly agree more with everything you said. It is amazing where you came from to where you are today, and it's a tribute to how hard and how dedicated you are to yourself and to the students that are around you. There are so many things that I think are important about what you said. You being the 1% of Latino women that have reached the point that you're at, that is like Pat said, a lighthouse on a hill for other women in your in your school to reach for. Yes, I can do it too, because she did it. She came from a trailer to this. She looks amazing. She's but I think the number one thing that I try to do every day in education is I try to be that mentor you were talking about. I try to be what is a male, like not a toxic male, not a perfect male, but a male, like a male who is, it's okay to be angry, bud. I don't have a problem with you being angry. What I have a problem with is the way you're using your anger. There's a way to use anger. Or I don't have a problem with you being sad, or I don't have a problem with the behavior you're showing right now, but you can show that emotion better, because what they've been taught in other places translates to the school sometimes. And if you can be that male role model or that female role model, which sometimes is lacking in the home or in the family structure, I think that's so important. What I was wondering is, what do you think are maybe the top three things? You mentioned one, the top three things that kids are facing today that we really should be concentrating on as parents and as educators.
Well, I believe that your circle is so valuable. Who you spend your most time with is who you become like.
Yes.
And so we preach to our kids and our parents that this idea of who our children are around is so important, because every choice they make has a consequence. And we tell them that, right? Every choice you make has a consequence, good or bad. Control the controllables. You can 100% choose who you decide to spend your time with.
Yes.
And I think that is so important in today's society, because Instagram, Snapchat, all of these things will paint a false narrative of reality. And so we need to make sure that we're surrounding ourselves with those who are kind, those who are caring, those who are genuine and loyal, and that are for us, right? Yeah. I tell my kids all the time, there are so many people in this world that are not for you. You better recognize the ones that are, and you better allow them to be for you and let them love you. And so I think number one is just the company that our kids keep.
I love that. Pick the people that add to your life, not subtract from your life. And a lot of people that these young kids are with subtract from their life.
It's true. It's true. And I do think social media, as much as it can be a blessing, I'm going to be honest, it does cause the most issues amongst students and adults. I mean, let's be honest, than any other realm that I can think of, even before we had social media, right? Because this false life is painted for them, and whether they're trying to emulate that life that's not real and they lose themselves in that, whether it's bullying that's happening on social media that can be masked behind a screen, whether it is them trying to portray themselves as something they're not individually. Social media, I feel like, while it can be used as a tool that is super effective for networking and branding and all of the things, sometimes our kids just aren't mature enough to handle that. So the circle you keep, the social media, and then I would just say for our kids, the inability for them to believe in themselves. We have kids that have so many issues with self-belief that we are constantly in this self-affirmation stage with them. I can believe in you, but if you don't believe in you, it doesn't matter. I can believe in you, but if you don't believe in you, you will never be successful or as successful as you can be. So really tapping into that SEL piece of how do our students feel supported and operate from a viewpoint of, I am enough. I am capable. I am able to do the things that the world or society thinks that I cannot do. You know, I received an email about a year ago today from the Texas Education Agency. That's like the governing body of education in Texas. And the email said, Miguel Velasquez, he's one of my students who graduated in 2018, so many years ago, has identified you as the single most impactful person in his life. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I love Miguel, and he's been gone. Like, what? Yeah. And we want y'all to come be keynote speakers at our big event for all of the principals. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, what? So Miguel's senior year, and this goes into just this piece of belief in our kids and believing in themselves. He was number 3 in the class. He was very intelligent. He received a full ride to Bowdoin University, which, you know, it's not an Ivy League, but it's right under that Ivy League status. And he received a full ride, and he came in and he's like, Dr. B, I'm going. And I'm like, wait, have you ever been there? Like, that's like 20 hours away. Have you been there? And he said, no. And I was like, wait, you're going to go to school 20 hours from here and you've never been. As a matter of fact, you haven't been far outside of Houston, most likely. And he said, no, you know, I can't afford a plane ticket. And I will never forget, we were in the back hallway and I told him, Miguel, I'm going to buy your plane ticket. Amazing. And you're going to go and you're going to make sure that this is where you want to go before you just up and leave. Mm-hmm. And so the next morning he walks in and he's like, Dr. B, you're never going to believe this. They're going to scholarship my travel because of my financial situation. Now, mind you, his family situation was not a good situation at all. It was probably worse than what I could have ever imagined. And I'm like, wait, first off, I was like, thank God, because that plane ticket was like $800. I knew it was $800. But I'm deceiving. But so I'm so happy, and we're, you know, having this discussion. And in that moment, I looked at him and we locked eyes, and I told him, Miguel, because of the decisions you are making right now, your kids will never have to experience possibly not going to see where they're going to college. This is changing everything about the trajectory of your life, and all of your decisions have led to this moment. It didn't happen by chance. Right. And he went, he came back. He is so successful. And he told me, whenever he came back, he told me the job that he landed here in Houston. And, you know, it's like this 6-figure job. And he's like, I just don't even know what to do. Like, that's not even something that he could fathom. Yeah. Right. And so just really getting our kids to believe in themselves and have this sense of self-worth and values, that when you step into these places, you're supposed to be there. And that's really just, you know, what we're trying to do here, and some of the issues that our kids are facing on a daily basis. Even when they've got it inside of them, they've just got to break it out for the rest of the world to see.
So I think you're absolutely right. Sorry, go ahead, Pat. I'll give you a chance.
At some point I'll get to chat. I'm
excited.
Sure.
I'm just excited.
I can see that,
in.
So Dr. B, one of the big things that you brought up there is, you know, inspiring these youth, but you also brought up their family situations and where they're coming from. What does that look like when you have, you know, the gentleman you're talking about flying, you know, driving 24 hours, 20 hours out of town? What does his family look like in that situation, as far as, hey, you know, this is my son, this is my whoever in my family, stay out of it? Or are they super supportive? Or is there, like, you've got to achieve some sort of buy-in? How do you do that as an educator? How do you do that as a principal who's maybe looking behind the curtains a little bit more than just teaching math or teaching, you know, English or Spanish class? What does that look like?
So whenever we talk about this dynamic with families, it is just so mind-boggling that so often our kids do not want to leave Houston because they're terrified of what's going to happen to their families, especially our kids whose families don't speak English. They are it for their family. And for them, it's like, there's plenty of good colleges right here in Houston. You'll stay here. And so I really feel like that relationship with the parent that's fostered from the time they step foot in these doors when they're 14 years old as freshmen is uber important in making sure that they trust me, that they trust that whenever we give their child advice, that it is for them, that it is the best advice for them. And sometimes it is hard, and sometimes they're not for it, right? Sometimes they're like, hold up, what do you mean you're buying my kid a plane ticket?
Right.
But,
Sure. Yeah. What kind of weird relationship do you have?
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
But I think that goes back to this whole piece of when they are 14, when they are freshmen, really understanding that this is a commitment to changing everything, not just about today. And I tell my kids, this isn't even about you. This is about the legacy that you're leaving and creating for your kids and your kids' kids, so that just like Miguel, his kids will never be in that situation, right? And I use my own story with them. Like, my daughter has no clue that she's not living a normal life that I lived, right? Like, I didn't know what Nikes were until I was in high school. We went to Payless and I was proud to carry that bag out of the mall, you know, with the 2-for-1, $12.99 Keds that I thought were
that are super cool now.
They are really cool.
What happened?
They're so cool.
They are.
And
so really just tying my story into them. And people always ask, like, Dr. B, what's your superpower? Like, how do you connect with these people? But really, it's just this authenticity, right? Like, I am who I am all the time, at work, at home, with my daughter, out in public. Like, this is who I am all of the time, right? And so whenever you become this person that people see in the same light everywhere you are, they begin to think, okay, maybe I can trust this person. And then that connection naturally happens. And I truly believe that my superpower is this ability to connect with people on levels that other people maybe struggle to get to. And it comes from this genuine authenticity that, look, I just want to see you win. I just want to see you win at all costs. And so when the parents not only buy into that, but commit to be a part of this success and excellence, then it becomes a lot easier for them to say, okay, I trust you. If you tell them to get on a plane and go, I'm here. I'm here for it. Get on a plane and go. And so, you know, it's a fine line, and it takes time to build that type of loyalty and that type of trust. But with the just consistency of action, it happens. And thank God it's happened in this place where I truly feel like, from the kids, teachers, parents, community, they trust me, and they trust that our campus, our school, our staff, we're 100% all in for our kids, and we want to see them win.
Trust is such an important factor in all education. Like, you have to get the kids to trust you, have to get the parents to trust you, and you as the head administrator have to get the teachers to trust you, which is kind of what my next question was, similar to Pat's. So I had a student that was coming late all the time, and I was in the helping with behavior, and they were really worried about him, and he was coming to late school all the time, and he was faced every morning with being yelled at because he was late, because he wasn't getting work done, he wasn't prepared, he wasn't everything. So I took a moment, and before he got yelled at one morning, I said, hey bud, how come you're late? And so it turned out that his mom had a profession that wasn't polite, that meant that she didn't get home till 2 or 3 in the morning. She also was affected by drugs. And so he was waiting until she woke up so he knew she was alive. That was the answer he gave me. And every day he was doing this, and he was coming in and then getting yelled at for it, but not wanting to explain it because it was too goddamn embarrassing that he was the adult. Wild. So I explained that. Most of the people were okay, but there was one that was like, no, that's not what it is. He's just a little brat. How do you get teachers underneath you to buy in? Because there are those teachers out there that it does not matter what you tell them. That it does not matter that we're a village. We need to teach the whole student. They are thinking, breathing, living beings, and telling them to sit down, shut up, and work is not how you teach. How do you get that ahead? So some of these teachers, not all, there are millions of amazing teachers. That is not what I mean. I'm just saying sometimes.
Right. So that's just such a perfect segue into this next section, because when I first came to my school, and I hope my teachers watch this because they're going to laugh now, but they didn't think it was funny, back then. They were ready for this leader that I'm not sure what they were expecting, but I'm different, right? And I am not afraid to tell people that I'm different. I have different beliefs that sometimes just shake the status quo a little bit. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but it's usually good trouble that's, worth having. And so I had some of those teachers. Actually, I had several of those teachers here on this campus right here that really just needed some lessons in empathy.
Right.
And what even is that, right? And so I think that whenever you start to talk to teachers about stories like what you're sharing right now, because the power in a story is so valuable. And so I just remember having conversations with them, personal conversations, because that's where that superpower kicks in of connection. And I had a teacher who was struggling with a kid, similar, obviously different story, but similar type of situation to what you just spoke of, James. And we were right here in my office, and we were just having, conversation, and half of the battle is listening, right? Yeah. And somehow in that conversation, we turned into a personal story that happened to me back in 2012, whenever I lost my daughter. And guess what? I still had to come to work.
Right.
And not everyone knew what was going on in that situation. And guess what? I still had to do my job. And I still had to love teachers. And I still had to teach kids and provide this environment for them that was stable when I wasn't stable.
No.
And
right.
So if as an adult we're going through those things, imagine what kids are going through.
Oh,
and so we actually did an activity at the beginning of this year that was phenomenal and powerful, where we had every single kid in our school on a big, huge spreadsheet that was blown up. And we had rows. And in those rows were, I know this child by name. I know this child by name and face. I know this child by name, face, and academic status. And I know this child by something personal to that child. And so every teacher went through every kid and marked what section they fell into. And we had kids that didn't have a check mark by their name.
Wow. Yeah. That is so dangerous.
Right? And so this kid is sitting in your class and you don't know their name.
Yeah.
And not only is this kid sitting in your class, these kids love us. Yes. And we don't know their names. And so it really allowed us to do some intentional work with making sure that every single kid is connected to an adult in this building.
Yeah.
That never will we put these signs up on the wall and a kid doesn't have a single check mark by their name. How is that even possible? Right? Yeah. And so, Interesting story. I love these kids. So one of my kids comes to my house, grad alum, to take some pictures for me. My kids do all my pictures and do all the things, they love doing that. And so she was like, Dr. B, and I'm not going to say the student's name, but she's like, Dr. B, this student loves you. She's you're her role model. You are just everything to her. She talks about how you wish your principal could, all of these things. And I swear, y'all, I was like, who is that?
Right.
And I reflected back to that activity. And I mean, granted, it's hard to know every single kid.
Yeah. 4,000 would be a lot. Yeah.
Right. But this kid loves me.
So it's different.
I don't know her name.
She has a connection with you that is stronger.
That's
you,
right.
yeah, wow.
And so I think whenever you really start to get into those deep conversations with teachers that matter, then it pulls at their heartstrings and they begin to have a mind shift, right? That, oh, I might be this tough teacher, but I also have a heart. And now I'm connecting kids to stories. So they become more than just a student in the seat, and they become this valuable life that we have this opportunity to change. And so then their mindset shifts. And so we're really able to do a lot of that work through stories, through really just trying to make sure that not only do we know the kids' stories, but we know each other's stories. And that it's okay to share our stories with the kids. You know, there used to be a time when the teacher was on the pedestal and they were just the thing, right? But now I need this student to connect with me so that they'll come here for me, so that they'll work for me, and so that then we can have the outcomes that we need. And so that's really the type of environment we've been able to foster in this building.
I swore the teachers just lived at the school for a very long time. Like when you would see them at Walmart or you'd see them around town, and all of a sudden it's like, don't you have something to be doing at the school, sir? You should probably go home. Yeah.
It's even worse when you get older and you might see them at a bar.
Oh, right. Well, I have a couple of my kids that I taught. I have their kids here now. And so that's like super weird. I'm like, wait, oh my God.
Have you had them come to your school and work?
So not yet. Not yet. But strange. I can feel it coming. I can feel the image of that on the brain.
It is both beautiful and strange. I love everything that you're saying, everything you're doing. I think that, so your school is much better than the schools that I've been in. But I always feel that every student needs one adult they can go to at any time. Those are the kids that are successful. Any behavior kids I have ever worked with, I have always tried to set them up with one adult that they can go to when they need to, especially behavior kids that can't handle the regular routines. So like I tell their teacher, if he comes up to you and says, I need to see Mr. Brad, you're going to let him, because that's his way of saying to you, I'm about to lose it and I need to see Mr. Brad. And then Mr. Brad's going to deal with it. Mr. Brad's going to have a chat with them, and they'll be able to bond and have a few minutes. And that only works it doesn't work all the time, but sometimes it's a better way of dealing with pressure and stress.
Yeah, but Mr. Brad's got all those check marks that she talked about, right? He's done those stories. He's done that time. He's done that experience with them, right?
Exactly. But, the behavior kids that feel like, I always talk about, there are two things with mental health that are super important. One is to have a community, and the other one is to have self-worth. And you touched upon both those. And I think you build both of those beautifully. And I think that is fabulous. Maybe you could talk about some of the new initiatives that you're doing that are, I think, I'm going to guess, about building community and building self-worth. I think those are the two things that our children are missing. And a lot of that is because of social media, because they're told that they're not pretty enough, not smart enough, not fast enough, they don't have the best car, they're not wearing the right shoes. Right. Or even worse, they've shared something that they didn't mean to share on social media, and it never leaves them. Right. And it destroys their self-worth. How are you counteracting that? What are some of these new initiatives? I'm pretty excited to hear about them.
So whenever we think about initiatives, one of the things that is beyond valuable on this campus is that every single student has an upperclassman mentor that is intentionally connected, that meets every single month with specific topics to discuss. Wow. And these individuals build community amongst each other, and then they branch out, and you'll see these mentor pairs pairing with other mentor pairs, right? And so they're able to build these pockets of community within our own setting here on campus. And it seems sometimes like, oh, that would be impossible. But really, that is what drives what we do, because now I have someone that's holding me accountable for all of the things that I say that I'm going to do. It's not an adult, right? Mm-hmm. And really through that program teaching our kids that the value of their character is the most important thing that they will ever try to protect, right? And we tell them, your character is who you are. I know they get sick of me. Your character is who you are when no one is watching, right?
Yeah.
Who are you when Dr. B isn't there? Who are you when your friends aren't there that are your good friends, when your parents aren't there? Can you really create these standards? And we've put them through leadership training. Kyle has been an integral part of that with regards to him coming every 9 weeks and taking this core group of leaders. He works with our leadership team. That's not necessarily the smartest kids in the school. Those are the kids who are the captains of the teams. Those are the kids who are the presidents of the clubs. Those are the NHS president, the speech and debate president and vice presidents. And really putting them through intentional training where you can never tell me you didn't know. You know how to create a standard. You know how to live that standard, and you know that that standard is unshakable. And really laying that foundation through this leadership training that we've been able to do with Kyle and work together with for our students to believe and know who they are, what they believe, who they are on the inside, right? And then to take that light out into the world. And we encourage them. Take everything that you're learning, and y'all, you should see them take notes when he's here. They're just taking notes like their life depends on it, like God told them to take those notes. But really just helping them to internalize that they are powerful enough to change this environment around them. And so now Kyle's been doing the leadership lessons. He's actually coming back one more time this year, and then he'll kick off our next year with that same project that we've been working on. And then I'm starting my individual weekly leadership lessons for this last 9 weeks. Every Monday, we meet with our seniors. So we've invited the entire senior class. They don't have to come, but they come. And our leadership team, and they're going through my leadership lessons that they will then just continue to build on the foundation that they've had through Kyle, and hopefully take their leadership even to the next level of knowing that everything that they have been taught can help them go out into this world and just shine, and that they won't be in these positions where they're tested, right? And they fall to those tests. They'll be able to stand up, walk out of these doors, and know that they have been prepared to be successful through these roles of leadership.
Yeah, it's wild, Dr. B. I love what you're doing. I think that your student body sort of speaks for that. Your testimonies of people coming back and saying that you've inspired them. You got guys like Kyle, like you're saying, Mr. Green there. His story alone and why what he's doing after the Trayvon Martin incident. And again, I think it goes to a cultural experience that a lot of your students probably can reflect on and really buy into. So, Dr. B, I love what you're doing. It's a beautiful thing to see mentors within our community that are willing to take that extra step. It's easy to take the paycheck, right? Once you've been in there, you know where the washrooms are, you know where the cafeteria is. It's easy to just kind of check out. And the later you get into your career, sometimes that can happen and you kind of coast.
That's right.
But I think you're seeing that when you put that effort in, when you're a little bit more diligent in your efforts in driving a culture and a community, the buy-in can be exponential. And the results that I bet you, if you asked around some of the community members that live in the vicinity of your school, they're like, it's changed. Our world looks a little bit different since Dr. B's been there and the culture that she's established. So, Dr. B, I love what you're doing. There needs to be more people like you out there. What do you say to teachers? What would be your leaving message for teachers that maybe are feeling that kind of end of the road? They don't know what's next. How do I get traction with my people? What would be some advice you would give them?
So I'm going to tell you just what I tell my teachers, because this is nothing that is a secret. And people think, that sometimes there's this magic wand that you can wave and it will change the culture in not just a school, but an organization or in a community or wherever it is that you are. And I tell my teachers that when you are the light, you are the light. Right. Do not dim your light for anyone. Do not hold what you have inside of you back, because the world needs you. And I don't know if you've heard Alicia Keys' song, You're Doing a Good Job. And I play that for my teachers. And if you could have been in that room, you would have seen tears. I tell them, just close your eyes and listen to the words and know that there is so much belief in you. There is so much belief in the work that you do. Don't you dare let someone dim your light. Continue to shine that light for the world to see. And when you do that, the results from our kids cannot be hidden, no matter who's trying to stop that light from shining. And so really just encouraging them to remember we're on this mission together. It doesn't mean we're always going to agree. It doesn't mean things are always perfect. But what it means is that we're going to show up in this building, in whatever building you're in, every single day with this mission of giving our best to our kids, so that ultimately when we're old and out of this profession, our legacy, our light will continue to shine through them. And really just trying to motivate them to not only hear those words, not only buy into those words, but to commit to being excellent in everything that we do. And if we do that, there is no option but success.
Now, normally Pat and I say something at the end of our show, but I can't follow up that. That was beautiful. If you're out there and you're lost and you need some help, come reach out to someone. Find your mentor, find your people. We're out there for you. We all are. DM me. We can help you. And if you're a young person, never give up. There's always better. Thank you so much, Dr. B. You're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Patrick, anything?
Well, yeah, it's tough to wrap up out of that, but those are words from a CEO, right? Like that's what you are in this environment. Is you are the CEO of your school, the community that you're building, and it's beautiful. But yeah, I think we'll just leave it at that. I think you wrapped it up perfectly for us. Profiteers out there, very cool stuff coming in the pipe. As always, we'll see you folks again next week with Financial Fitness, and again live with your boys on Thursday night.